All right, so we're gonna look today at history of the Christian church after the apostles. So it starts with the early spread of Christianity. Um, Christianity emerged in the first century AD as a small Jewish sect centered around the teachings of Jesus Christ. It was initially a remarkable spreading religion, given the challenging social and political landscape of the Roman Empire. The apostles, particularly Paul, played a crucial role in transforming Christianity from a localized movement to a broader religious tradition. In these early centuries, Christian communities were often marginalized and periodically persecuted. Despite these challenges, the religion expanded rapidly through several key mechanisms. One of these mechanisms are personal evangelism, where individuals, believers, share their faith with friends, family, and communities. You also have the extensive Roman road network. So the Roman Empire was very keen at building a vast road network throughout their empire, which made travel between countries and cities and different areas of their empire a lot easier, which meant that the spreading of Christianity through missionaries going to other places, so like Paul spread all throughout the Mediterranean area, as well as other early believers. And so that Roman road was definitely a facilitation of that travel and communication. You also have the universal appeal of Christianity's message of salvation and equality, which transcended traditional social boundaries. So in that time, there definitely would have been that view of male versus female, males still being dominant and females being the lesser, or also the slave versus the free. You would definitely have slaves within the Roman Empire, and even some of their slaves weren't quite slaves from what we know in our American history. They had some rights as actually household members and things like that. But there's definitely a distinction if you were a household slave versus a free Roman citizen. And then also, especially within the Jewish community, there's a difference between Jews and Gentiles. Well, when Christianity rolls along onto the scene, there's actually a verse that was written that's that there's no difference between male or female, free or slave, Greek or Jew, but they are all the same in Jesus Christ. And so this new message of equality transcends those traditional social boundaries, and that made it very appealing for people to become Christian. And also the religion was very adaptable to other cultural contexts. It did not need to just remain Jewish. It began to be spread throughout the world and be able to be viewed by other cultures in a very positive way as well. So by the 4th century, Christianity transitioned from a persecuted minority faith to the official Roman religion of the Roman Empire under Roman Emperor Constantine, a pivotal moment that would reshape the religious landscape of Europe and beyond. In the Middle Ages, we see several different things that take place. One of them is the Crusades. So the Crusades was a time where the kingdoms, especially the religious kingdoms in Europe, wanted to retake Jerusalem for themselves. Obviously, Islam has came onto the scene, and Muslim control of the Holy Land is in place, and so they go on these crusades to go retake the Holy Land. They were, for the most part, not very successful. There's a few times where they gained back some of the land around the Holy Land. There's even a time where they gained control or temporary control of Jerusalem for a time. But it should be noted that the Crusaders were very persecuting everybody that was not Christian. So in this time frame, Muslims were actually better to Jews than Christians were to Jews. And so there was definitely some of that issue going on during this time. There was also another thing during this time, during the Middle Ages, called the Inquisition. This emerged as a systematic effort to maintain doctrinal orthodoxy. It was established in the 12th century and was designed to identify and suppress heresy. There were inquisitorial courts which wielded significant power using interrogation and really torture and punishment to enforce religious conformity. This period saw some of the most controversial practices in Christian history, including, once again, torture and also public executions of those deemed heretical. By the late Middle Ages, the Catholic Church's power was also simultaneously at its zenith and beginning to show significant strain. There were many theological debates, political conflicts, and growing social complexity that set the stage for dramatic religious transformation. The religious transformation is the Protestant Reformation. This began with Martin Luther in 1517. He's a German monk and theologian. He catalyzed one of the most significant religious transformations in Western history by posting his 95 Theses, which Luther challenged the fundamental practices of the Catholic Church, particularly the sale of indulgences, which were papal documents promising reduced punishment for sins. So essentially, if you sinned, you could go and buy an indulgence, and your punishment or the things that you needed to do as a good Catholic would be reduced. You wouldn't have to do as many Hail Marys or whatever. It should be noted that Martin Luther did not set out to create a whole different sect of Christianity. He sought to reform Catholicism and wanted to see some of these theological issues that he saw addressed, and then therefore to have a reformation within the Catholic Church. This did not happen. The Catholic Church kicked him out. And so he then formed Protestantism and also the Lutheran Church. Lutherans' core theological arguments centered on several revolutionary principles: salvation through faith alone, which is solidified, the supreme authority of Scripture, sola scriptura, and then also the priesthood of all believers, which challenged the church hierarchical structure. Obviously, after this time, there's several forms of Protestantism that was formed as well. So Lutheranism, obviously following the direct teachings of Luther. Then you have Calvinism, following the teachings of John Calvin in the Netherlands, where he emphasized predestination and divine sovereignty. Then you have Anglicanism, emerging from King Henry VIII's break from Rome. Essentially, King Henry VIII wanted to get divorced and marry a different woman, and the Catholic Church said no, and he said, okay, we're going to form our own religion in England, and broke from the Catholic Church. They remained very similar in their beliefs and practices, but then that is when the Anglican Church was formed. And then you have Anabaptist movements, which advocated for adult baptism and separation of church and state. Following the Protestant Reformation, you do see a Catholic Reformation, or the Catholic Reformation. The Catholic Church responded to Protestant challenge through its own internal reform movement. You see the Council of Trent in 1545 to 1563, which reaffirmed Catholic doctrine, implemented significant institutional reforms, and launched new missionary efforts. The Council of Trent had some doctrinal clarifications. The Council definitively articulated Catholic theological positions on critical issues that had been challenged by Protestant reformers. This included formal definitions of the nature of salvation, affirming that faith and good works are both essential, the 7 sacraments, the role of scripture in church tradition, and the authority of the Catholic Church and the Pope. They also had religious reform. The council implemented significant internal reforms to address critiques about church corruption and moral laxity, including requiring many priests to receive better education, establishing seminaries for proper theological training, enforcing stricter standards of conduct for clergy, and emphasizing the importance of pastoral care and religious education. Liturgical standardization. The council standardized Catholic worship practices. They confirmed the Latin Mass as the primary form of worship, established a uniform missal or a liturgical text, created a standardized approach to religious rituals and practices across different regions. There's some biblical textual developments, confirming the Latin Vulgate as the official biblical text, establishing a clear list of canonical books, and preparing for more accurate translations and editions of religious texts. Its institutional response to Protestants was that they launched the Catholic Counter-Reformation, which was their strategic response to Protestant challenges, reaffirming core Catholic beliefs, developing strategies to prevent further spread of Protestant ideas, and creating mechanisms for religious education and enforcement of Catholic doctrine. As Europe colonized all throughout the world, this became a very powerful vector for Christian expansion as well. Missionaries accompanied explorers and colonial administrators, spreading Christianity to the Americas, Africa, and parts of Asia. This period saw both genuine spiritual engagement and complex interactions involving cultural displacement and colonial power dynamics. Then just shortly on some of the typical sacraments and rituals, and then also into the different celebrations of the Christian church. So Christian ritual practices vary across different denominations, but generally include baptism, which is the symbolizing of spiritual rebirth, the Eucharist or communion, remembering Christ's sacrificial death, confirmation, marking spiritual maturity, marriage and other life cycle ceremonies, and also foot washing, symbolizing servant leadership. As far as the Christian calendar, we are generally pretty familiar with these as they are very much celebrated within American culture. You have Advent, which is the preparation for Christmas. So all throughout December, you'll have Advent calendars and churches that follow a certain liturgical style leading up to Christmas. Then you have Christmas, which is the celebration of Jesus' birth. You have Lent, which is a period of reflection and penitence. And then also Easter, commemorating Jesus' resurrection. And then you have the ordinary time, the period of time for spiritual growth between these major seasons. So that is actually all of the lecture. We are going to go into a couple of videos. So I have posted in our Blackboard somewhere towards the beginning a playlist of my YouTube videos. So feel free to take a look at them. But I've been adding, and I'll have to see if it automatically adds these ones in. But I found a guy that does some very fair, balanced Christian exploration. So we're gonna watch some of his videos today. But I've been, of course, then as I watch the stuff, the more suggestions come up. I'm like, oh, that's a good one for that. Oh, that's a good one for that. So there should be several of these in there.
There's so many different forms of Christianity.